Breaking news from Buckingham Palace today. A striking statement from a royal advisor reveals that King Charles III has made an unprecedented decision, the first of its kind in over 2 centuries, and it will directly affect his 2 grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet. After a long period of silence amid mounting public controversy and a series of unresolved scandals surrounding Harry and Meghan, the king has finally taken a definitive step. Although the decision has not been publicly announced, it is widely understood that this move is far from symbolic. It could mark a major turning point, one that reshapes the entire line of succession and redefines the place and role of these 2 children within the current structure of the British monarchy. At this point, the question is no longer whether or not a decision has been made, but rather, what path has King Charles truly chosen? In which direction will this move steer the royal chessboard? Is it a firm stand to safeguard the dignity of the monarchy, or simply the inevitable consequence of Harry and Meghan's increasingly controversial actions? Actions that many have deemed to have crossed the line. Part 1, a historic decision. Throughout the centuries-long history of the United Kingdom, few decisions have shaken both the royal family and the public as profoundly as this one. According to sources close to the palace, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, in his private office at Clarence House, King Charles III quietly signed a document regarded as a turning point: the removal of 2 children, Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, from the official line of succession to the British throne. This move is not merely symbolic. It carries far-reaching legal, financial, and ceremonial consequences for those involved. It marks an extraordinarily rare action in royal history, with the last comparable event occurring in the 19th century, when the succession laws were revised to prevent a crisis during Queen Victoria's reign. According to a senior legal advisor, the document had been discreetly drafted over several months following a series of confidential meetings between cabinet advisors, royal legal counsel, and representatives from Parliament. One of the key reasons cited in the accompanying memorandum was the lack of national affiliation and uncertainty regarding loyalty to the institution, particularly given that both children have never resided in the UK, hold dual citizenship, and are being raised in an environment completely detached from the traditional values of the British monarchy. These justifications are believed to stem from an effort to preserve the integrity and stability of the crown, rather than serving as a form of personal punishment. Although the full contents of the document have not been publicly disclosed, many royal commentators believe the decision goes beyond the mere revocation of succession rights. It may also include the withdrawal of the titles Prince and Princess, as well as the removal of certain security and financial privileges that had been informally retained even after Meghan and Harry stepped back from royal duties in 2020. Since then, the couple has remained active in high-profile media ventures, with companies like Netflix and Spotify ventures many have criticized as deliberate efforts to capitalize on royal branding. What stands out is that while not publicly visible, King Charles has reportedly been monitoring developments closely. An insider described the move as a cold but necessary decision, not driven by hostility, but by responsibility to the institution. This raises a profound question. Should succession rights, the ultimate symbol of lineage and royal continuity, be preserved for individuals who do not reside within the UK, do not serve the crown, and are being raised in a completely different cultural framework? It is also worth noting that this decision was not announced through Parliament or via any formal declaration, but was instead transmitted quietly through internal channels, as if to reinforce that the monarchy retains full control over its internal affairs. However, once the information leaked, a wave of public reaction quickly spread across both sides of the Atlantic. In the UK, the majority opinion appeared supportive, viewing the move as a necessary step to protect the image and credibility of the monarchy in the 21st century, an era when public trust is increasingly regarded as a strategic asset. In contrast, the American and international media criticized the decision as overly harsh one of severance rather than reconciliation. From a pragmatic standpoint, it's clear that political and institutional factors created mounting pressure on the king to act, as constitutional monarchies around the world face growing scrutiny about their modern relevance and necessity. Ensuring transparency, reform, and a sense of accountability has become a top priority. In that context, eliminating figures with ambiguous commitments is seen as a strategic move. A detail of particular interest to the public, Archie and Lilibet's names have now been removed from the official line of succession, listed on the royal family's website. Though no accompanying statement has been issued, this silent removal has been independently verified by legal experts. Is this the clearest signal yet that the decision is final and irreversible? And so without a lengthy proclamation, without a grand press conference, with nothing more than a silent signature inside Clarence House, King Charles has radically altered the future of two children and very likely the trajectory of Harry and Meghan's roles for many years to come. Part 2. The backdrop to a monumental decision. To understand the deeper reasons behind King Charles III's rare and historic move, one must look back at the turbulent journey that began when Prince Harry and Meghan officially left the United Kingdom. The 2020 Meg exit was not merely a geographic departure, it marked the start of an unprecedented chain of events, ongoing scandals, mounting waves of public backlash, and an open media war between a couple who once held royal titles and the very institution they renounced. At first, Harry and Meghan claimed they were stepping away to build a financially independent life, to enjoy personal freedom, and to escape the rigidity of royal life in Britain. But within months, multi-million-dollar media contracts began to surface, from Netflix documentaries and Spotify podcasts to major publishing deals. What puzzled the public was not that they were earning money, but how they used the royal family's image as the core material for these ventures. They hadn't distanced themselves from royalty. Instead, they carried the crown with them to America to tell their own version of the story. The turning point came with their bombshell 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey. In the broadcast, Meghan suggested that members of the royal family had made racially insensitive remarks, expressing concern over the skin color of her unborn child. She also recounted feelings of isolation, lack of support during her pregnancy with Archie, and the mental health struggles she endured. The revelations shocked the world and pushed the monarchy into defensive mode. Western media, for the most part, rallied behind Meghan, framing her as a modern woman brave enough to confront a centuries-old rigid establishment. However, a growing number of voices began to question, was Meghan revealing the truth or delivering a carefully curated narrative designed to cast herself as a victim? Because after that interview came a string of highly coordinated media efforts, the Archetypes podcast series, a children's book authored by Meghan Harry's memoir Spare, all deeply focused on family discord. To the public, it began to feel like a serialized drama with personal conflicts strategically monetized. From the perspective of insiders within the royal family, these were not isolated emotional reactions, they were elements of a calculated campaign. Harry, once adored as the lovable rogue prince, now shared his wounds in a solemn tone, openly acknowledging that these stories were helping him and Meghan build influence in America. Meghan, once a mid-tier Hollywood actress, had evolved into an international figure, not only due to her Duchess title, but also through her media savvy and ability to emotionally engage the public with surgical precision. At the same time, Harry's relationship with his family deteriorated. His once close bond with brother William had all but vanished. Queen Elizabeth II in her final years remained calm and impartial, but after her passing, the familial connection frayed more than ever. Even King Charles, his own father, could not ignore that the media storm his son created was beginning to overshadow the monarchy's authority. Insiders reported moments when any sentence spoken in the palace could become a Netflix soundbite. Throughout all of this, the children, Archie and Lilibet, were shielded from the media. What appeared to be protection raised further questions if privacy was the goal. Why were their names frequently included in public statements? Why were family images consistently featured in personal projects? More significantly, their names were trademarked in the U.S., a move that led observers to wonder whether these children were truly being safeguarded or slowly transformed into intellectual property within their parents' media strategy. Public opinion soon split into two distinct camps. In America, Harry and Meghan retained a large base of support, especially among communities championing gender equality, women's rights, and anti-racism. In Britain, however, trust in the couple collapsed. A 2023 YouGov poll showed that only 28% of Britons viewed Harry positively, and Meghan's favorability had dropped even further to just 22%. They came to be seen as figures who wanted out, but kept the crown in direct conflict with the monarchy's core values: service, dedication, and discretion. From these developments, many experts concluded that King Charles's action was inevitable. In an ancient institution where every change is weighed with extreme care, the removal of succession rights no longer seemed punitive. It was a necessary decision to bring an end to a chaotic era. Keeping Archie and Lilibet on the line of succession despite not residing in the UK, not performing royal duties, and being continuously used as symbolic figures in media had created an irreconcilable contradiction within the constitutional framework. Even so, ethical questions remain unresolved. Is it fair for children to bear the consequences of their parents' choices? Is this decision truly the right way to protect the monarchy? Or does it set a dangerous precedent for future political purges within the royal structure? And more broadly, can a child born into royal blood, but raised as a private citizen, be completely severed from the heritage they were born into? While there are no clear answers. Yet, one thing is certain: when a reigning monarch chooses to erase his own grandchildren from royal history, it is not merely a decision, it is a statement. From now on, Archie and Lilibet will grow up not only with dual citizenship, but with two vastly different legacies: one of unbounded freedom in the United States, and the other, a fading shadow of a throne they were once poised to approach. Part 3: Meghan's reaction. Immediately after news of the historic decision began to spread, the atmosphere at Buckingham Palace grew more turbulent than ever, not because of an official speech, but due to the unexpected and emotionally charged appearance of Meghan Markle at the very heart of the storm. According to a reliable insider, the Duchess not only burst into tears but screamed intensely in King Charles's office the following morning, pleading desperately for justice for her two children and begging the king to reverse the decision with what she described as just one signature, no legal procedure required. Eyewitnesses reported that Meghan arrived unannounced, appearing like a mother pushed to her breaking point. She stormed straight to King Charles's desk, sobbing as she questioned officials. "Why did you erase my children from that list?" Then, suddenly collapsing onto the palace's marble floor, she cried until her voice gave out. Several in the room recalled her exclaiming emotionally, "Look at me." We still love this royal family, leaving everyone stunned by the raw outpouring of emotion. Reports confirmed that Harry was not present. He had not been informed beforehand and had no involvement in the decision-making process. When Meghan left the palace, her face flushed and her eyes swollen with tears, those present saw just behind her the exhausted figure of her silent husband. Harry forced a strained smile, but his eyes still reflected a dazed bewilderment. A family acquaintance revealed Harry was completely devastated. He was stunned to learn he had been excluded from discussions where he should have had a voice. The incident immediately sparked widespread public debate. Meghan, long known as a master of media strategy, meticulously managing her public image. Why had she chosen such an impulsive response instead of taking a more measured or legal route? Was it the primal instinct of a mother desperate to protect her children at any cost? Or was it a last-ditch effort to salvage a crumbling media persona? Another perspective suggested that Meghan's behavior may not have been spontaneous at all, but rather a carefully choreographed emotional script. Throughout her personal branding journey from narrator to feminist icon, Meghan has frequently embraced symbolic appearances, the elegant white dresses, the poignantly crafted statements, and her uncanny ability to summon public sympathy. Yet this appearance shocked many. Gone was the poised and powerful woman. What emerged was a broken, vulnerable Meghan face to face with the most powerful man in Britain in a moment of suffocating drama. If this truly was a performance, what was the motivation? Was it an attempt to regain public affection, to recast herself as an untouchable victim? Or was it a calculated bid to pressure King Charles into a concession at a time when the Meghan brand might need to be rescued by a dose of public pity? From a legal standpoint, Meghan could have pursued a formal appeal or lawsuit. However, taking such a step would also invite relentless media scrutiny and potentially force the royal family to disclose additional internal documents, risking further institutional instability. Perhaps that's why Meghan chose to respond with an emotional confrontation instead of relying on lawyers and legal clauses as a way to sway public opinion and indirectly apply pressure on the monarchy. Some sociologists argue that when a person is cornered, their reactions are more instinctual than strategic. And sometimes it's the sobbing, the shouting, the sheer helplessness that convinces people someone is telling the truth. If Meghan truly strikes a chord of empathy in the public's heart, the royal family may be forced to reconsider the long-term impact. From another angle, Meghan's reaction also served as a stark warning sign of inner fracture within the Sussex household. A mother feeling utterly betrayed, a father sidelined, and a family adrift in the storm of public scrutiny. Harry's absence was interpreted as evidence of his disagreement with his father's decision, yet also a sign of his inability to defend his position. This, in turn, left Meghan as the sole bearer of the emotional weight, but also the sole speaker, as her pain had now become a public narrative too potent to ignore. The reaction from the American press was swift and powerful. Major outlets simultaneously ran headlines, featuring images of Meghan weeping in the palace before King Charles. Online communities split sharply one side, expressing deep sympathy the other, questioning whether it was a calculated emotional play. A flash poll conducted by People magazine that same day revealed 52% of respondents believed the emotion was genuine, while 48% suspected Meghan had executed a pre-planned psychological script. This raises a larger question. Where do we draw the line between authenticity and performance? If in the past Meghan spoke about the pressures of royal life, this time she didn't just describe it. She enacted it, channeling her feelings through a visceral display. However, if the public senses even a flicker of theatrical intent rather than truth, one single misstep could bring down the carefully built image she's constructed over the years. According to several media analysts, it's highly likely that following this outburst, Meghan and Harry will release an official statement, possibly in the form of a written piece, a video message, or a television appearance, to reclaim the emotional narrative and reposition themselves through the lens of vulnerability. But regardless of the format, one thing is already certain: the image of Meghan standing alone confronting the crown has become an indelible symbol. She is no longer just a modern mother, but an emotional warrior challenging tradition with tears and fury. Still, one undeniable truth remains: this eruption of rage has opened a new chapter. Meghan is no longer seen as soft. She is now a symbol of resistance. But the question lingers: was screaming in the palace truly a wise act of defiance? In a royal institution that prizes decorum and restraint, such conduct may be viewed as lacking control, lacking dignity, and likely to be used as further evidence to bolster the argument for traditional authority. If you want status, you must respect the rules. In the end, the shockwave didn't just focus public attention on Meghan, it cast a harsh light on Harry, the man on the sidelines, silent in despair. And from that silence, a quiet question began to rise in the minds of millions. Was the independent life they dreamed of ever truly free? Or was it merely a carefully staged illusion, masking a deeper conflict between the need to control and the simple human desire to be loved? Part 4: The legal and political dimensions behind the decision. King Charles III's decision to officially remove the names of his two grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, from the royal line of succession was not merely the result of personal emotions or internal family disputes. Rather, it was a calculated legal action meticulously prepared through private consultations among royal advisors and the king's cabinet. For the first time in nearly 2 centuries, an adjustment concerning succession law unfolded in the age of global media, where every detail is tracked by the public in real time. This unprecedented move raises a pressing question: what truly happened behind palace doors that led a monarch known for his measured temperament to sign such a controversial document? The British royal succession is governed by the Succession to the Crown Act 2013, which was itself revised to reflect modern values, removing male preference primogeniture and accepting marriages to Catholics. However, the Act continues to uphold essential conditions. To remain in the line of succession, an individual must demonstrate core royal attributes, including permanent residence, loyalty to the United Kingdom, and compliance with royal obligations. In the case of Archie and Lilibet, neither resides in the UK, both hold American citizenship, and neither has participated in any official royal functions. According to the legal advisor's assessment, these factors were sufficient grounds to formally recommend their removal from the list. What makes this issue particularly sensitive is the matter of dual nationality. For most people, it might seem like an administrative footnote, but within a constitutional monarchy where national symbolism is paramount, citizenship reflects allegiance and commitment. In a world where political tensions between the UK and the US could one day intensify, can a full-time US resident with royal blood truly serve as a legitimate representative of the British Crown? These children are being raised within American culture with little to no exposure to British royal traditions, prompting many to argue that their inclusion in the line of succession is now merely symbolic, and symbolism the monarchy has learned can no longer be sustained when it conflicts with function. Another central issue is royal duty. Since 2020, when Harry and Meghan stepped down from senior royal roles, they also relinquished all responsibilities associated with public duties and ceremonial obligations. However, the contradiction lies in their continued use of royal titles to build a personal brand, signing multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, hosting podcasts, and authoring best-selling books. This duality has sparked fierce backlash in the UK, where critics argue they reap the benefits of royal prestige while rejecting its responsibilities. In that context, the idea that two children who have never participated in royal life could still maintain succession status felt increasingly misaligned with the spirit of a modern constitutional monarchy. A further political factor involves the royal family's streamlining efforts. Beginning under Queen Elizabeth II, the monarchy has sought to reduce its size to operate more efficiently and appear more relatable to the public. Under King Charles III, this initiative has accelerated. The royal budget has been cut by 30% from 2012 to 2024, and ceremonies have been simplified to spotlight only key senior members. Meanwhile, Harry's family has withdrawn. Meghan has repeatedly criticized the monarchy, and the two children, though royal by blood, remain detached from the system. Within this leaner royal framework, keeping their names on the list is increasingly seen as both unnecessary and potentially counterproductive. Thus, King Charles's decision is not only personal, it reflects a broader strategic vision. Yet the moral dimension continues to divide public opinion. Should children bear the consequences of decisions made by their parents, especially when they are too young to choose their own paths? According to a recent YouGov poll, 68% of Britons support the King's action, but a significant number expressed concern. In a society that increasingly values children's rights and humanitarian principles, the question of fairness cannot be dismissed. This is why the issue has transcended private family matters and evolved into a broader debate of public interest. As one royal commentator remarked, "While King Charles is trying to build a monarchy that is transparent and efficient, the lingering wounds of the past, particularly those involving Meghan, have forced his hand. The question is no longer whether he should act, but whether he even had another choice left." Part 5 Media Repercussions. The moment news broke that Archie and Lilibet had been removed from the royal line of succession, media across both sides of the Atlantic erupted. In the UK, major publications such as The Times, The Daily Telegraph, and The Guardian reported the development with a measured tone, focusing more on constitutional law analysis than judgment of King Charles's decision. In contrast, the reaction in the United States, where Harry and Meghan have long been portrayed as emblematic of a reformed monarchy, was markedly different. CNN labeled the move as an erasure of symbolic identity, while the New York Times quoted an expert who stated, "This isn't merely a royal family matter, it sets a precedent that could affect children's rights and raise questions of race within a conservative institution." What stood out even more was the growing scrutiny from some corners of the American commentary class, many of whom did not hesitate to question whether this was an act of discrimination against biracial children, a topic Meghan herself had previously raised during her explosive 2021 interview with Oprah. However, in a surprising twist, some of Meghan's most vocal supporters have begun to express doubt. Widespread commentary on social media reveals a growing fatigue toward what is perceived as Meghan's repeated crisis activation and her apparent use of her children's images as tools for public sympathy. One user on Twitter, now X, wrote, "When a child shows up in the media so frequently that it feels unnatural, you start to wonder who really needs the attention, the child or the parent." This negative sentiment has extended into the commercial sphere. Some brands that once had formal partnerships with the Sussexes, such as Spotify and Penguin Random House, are reportedly reconsidering long-term deals. According to a Business Insider report, at least 2 child-focused media campaigns that Meghan had planned for late this year have now been postponed. A media representative based in Los Angeles noted more and more partners are becoming cautious about aligning themselves with a royal-adjacent family that has stepped outside the official system, especially when legal protections are no longer guaranteed as before. In contrast, public reaction in the United Kingdom has been far more decisive and supportive of King Charles's decision. An independent poll conducted by YouGov within 48 hours of the leak showed that 68% of Britons surveyed said they either fully agreed or understood the rationale behind removing the 2 children from the line of succession. Only 14% expressed disapproval or believed Archie and Lilibet should retain their succession rights. This overwhelming support reflects the prevailing sentiment among the British public. They seek a monarchy rooted in stability and tradition, not one that serves as a stage for personalized branding projects. It's worth acknowledging that Meghan and Harry were the ones who voluntarily stepped back from their royal duties in 2020, later building their independent brand in the United States. While the American press might denounce King Charles's decision as harsh on children, they cannot ignore the fact that the couple has frequently leveraged their royal titles and imagery, including that of their children, to elevate their personal brand. From Netflix docuseries to Harry's memoir Spare, their narrative has been centered on deeply personal stories, often controversial for their accuracy and fairness, in depicting internal royal relationships. Which raises a broader question: is Meghan now paying the price for the very strategy that once made her famous? For the royal family, this decision was never simply a personal reaction to Meghan. It was symbolic, a declaration that being part of the monarchy is not merely a matter of bloodline, but also of allegiance, representation, and a willingness to serve. From the perspective of King Charles and his royal advisors, Archie and Lilibet, though family by blood no longer fulfill these essential criteria, given that their lives, cultural upbringing, and trajectory have diverged completely from the foundational values of the monarchy. As such, while public and media reactions remain mixed, one reality is becoming increasingly evident: Meghan is no longer universally cast as the sympathetic victim she once was. She is steadily losing the international media backing that once propelled her to prominence as a modern-day media queen. And as Harry remains silent, Meghan continues to push forward, but this time her voice echoes far less powerfully than before. Part 6: Harry, trapped in an impossible position. Amid the media storm surrounding the removal of his children from the line of succession, the one person who has remained conspicuously and confusingly silent is Prince Harry. He has made no public appearances, given no statements to the press, and has remained entirely inactive across all media platforms, an absence that has only intensified public speculation rather than generating sympathy. On the one hand, it may reflect the reaction of a deeply wounded father. On the other, it could very well be a strategic retreat, a calculated silence to avoid being caught between 2 opposing forces: his powerful father, King Charles, and his strong-willed wife, Meghan Markle. Once one of the most beloved members of the royal family, Harry made a deliberate choice to walk a different path, leaving his royal post behind to live freely in the United States with Meghan, the woman he had vowed to protect at all costs. Yet over the years, after a series of controversial decisions, from stepping away from royal duties to publicly criticizing his own family, Harry's public image has gradually become clouded by doubt and contention. He has always stood firmly beside Meghan through every storm, even at the cost of fracturing relationships with his brother, his father, and his closest friends in the UK. But this time feels different. Sources within the palace have confirmed that Harry was not present at Buckingham Palace when the critical decision was signed. He also did not accompany Meghan in her meeting with the King's office to express opposition, nor did he release any statement in defense of their children, something that in the past had always been his top priority. Even U.S. media outlets typically supportive of the Sussexes have begun to question, where is Harry and why has he chosen silence? Some analysts speculate that Harry may have been informed in advance of the King's decision but lacked the influence to change it, or worse, that he tacitly accepted and agreed with the royal family's reasoning. For those familiar with the mechanisms of monarchy, removing individuals from the line of succession is never a spur-of-the-moment move. It's the result of extensive consultation, legal preparation, and certainly advance notice to relevant family members. If Harry was unaware, it would be a betrayal. But if he knew and chose not to react, it may be that he is quietly detaching himself from what Meghan continues to fight for. Another sign of change lies in Harry's recent media approach. In a rare public comment earlier this year, he said, "I no longer have the strength for these battles. What I want is peace for my children." At the time, the remark was interpreted as a criticism of the British press. But now that quote is being reinterpreted from a new angle. Perhaps the constant tension, control, and noise generated within Meghan's world is what has drained him the most. Even more notable is the apparent thaw in Harry's relationship with his brother, Prince William. A source close to the Prince of Wales revealed that the two brothers had an unofficial meeting this past spring in the UK, without Meghan, without the press, just a private conversation between two men who had once refused to look each other in the eye. Though details remain scarce, the meeting could mark a crucial turning point. For if William, who once harbored deep resentment, was willing to reconcile, it's likely that King Charles himself sanctioned the possibility of Harry's return. So what lies ahead for Harry? Will he continue life in the US, immersed in the high-volume media landscape Meghan has so meticulously built? Or will he choose a different path, quietly repairing family ties so his children can come to know their roots and heritage, even if they are no longer part of the royal succession? That is not an easy choice, especially when love and duty no longer walk hand in hand. And in this context, Meghan's image is coming under increasing scrutiny, because clearly Harry is no longer displaying the unwavering allegiance he once did. And if even Harry is now stepping back or slowly awakening, then Meghan may be facing a deepening isolation. Not because the royal family has shut her out, but because those closest to her are beginning to step away.